Alright, hey you guys, it is TsubakiSwagg, and I'm coming to you with my overall impressions of Anohana, the flower we saw that day. Okay, I was told I had no clue how in the world this anime was going to go because it was only 11 episodes, and JB the Uchiha told me that I should watch it, so I watch pretty much everything he tells me that I should watch because I value his judgment for the most part. Some shit he has showed me was just completely ridiculous. So I decided that I was just going to go ahead and watch it. I mean, it can't be that bad. And it was so fucking sad. I mean, if you have watched Elfen Lied and you saw how, well, or if you read the manga, better yet, if you read the manga of Elfen Lied and you thought that was tear-jerking, oh my god, like this anime literally brought me to tears. It was crazy how fucking sad this anime was. Oh my god, I was not ready. So, okay, Anohana, the flower we saw that day. There are 6 main characters. Technically, if you want to get technical, there's only 5, and one of them is technically not there. And I will say, as a warning, this first impressions or overall impressions will have spoilers in it because I will tell everything. Well, I'll try not to say everything, but I'm pretty much going to tell everything. So, warning! Okay, so this anime. There are 6 main characters. There's Jintan, who is the main character, and then there's also Minma. There is Yukiatsu, who is a cross-dressing creep. There's Anaru, who is the follower. And then there's Tsuruko, whom is the intelligent peacekeeper. And then there's Popo, who's just the fucking awesome one. He is my favorite character out of all of them. But pretty much this anime starts off. We see Jintan, like, in the kitchen cooking whatever. And we see this girl, like, pestering him. And at first it seems like he's really not paying her any attention. And then his father comes in and he doesn't even acknowledge that she's there. And then we come to find out later on, after Jintan got off on Minma sitting on his lap, that Minma is actually a ghost. And Jintan is literally the only person who can see her. So that was pretty much how the story starts off. And we see, like, Jintan and Minma, they're, like, interacting with each other. And Minma is pretty much, like, in a way, it looks like she's getting on his nerves, but Jintan looks like he doesn't necessarily mind it. And Minma, she's pretty much just a little kid at heart, because we find out when she passed away, she was literally, like, a little kid. I want to say she was, like, 6 or 7, maybe. Maybe not even that old. They were probably around like between 5 and 7 years old. And Minma and Jintan, they had kind of like a love-hate relationship. Like all 6 of them knew that Jintan and Minma liked each other. But they also knew that Anaru liked Jintan and Yukiatsu liked Minma. And Tsuruko liked Yukiatsu, and Popo was just happy to be there because he was the smallest of the bunch, whom he turned out after they got older. He got huge, like he was bigger than the rest of them, but Popo is fucking awesome. Popo, like I said, is like my favorite character in the whole anime as a whole. So they have this huge like love octagon. Or hexagon, sorry, there's 6 sides. They have this huge, like, love hexagon. And Jintan, pretty much, he realizes as time goes on that he doesn't even really want Minma to go away. And they're still not even necessarily sure why Minma's there. Minma just remembers that there's a wish that she needs to fulfill before she can leave, but Jintan has absolutely no clue what the wish is. So Jintan is pretty much just like spending time with Minma, trying to figure out what he needs to do. Well, trying to figure out and not necessarily trying to figure out what he needs to do to be able to let Minma go to heaven, because she is technically dead. She's a ghost. So she's not actually there with him. So he's doing all these things, trying to figure out what he needs to do to send her to heaven, and they are spending time together. They sleep in the same room, but of course they don't sleep in the same bed. But in this, like, Jintan had pretty much become a shut-in. He stopped going to school, and he, like, literally, after a while, like, after one day of missing, he started missing more days, and his dad didn't do anything to stop him from doing so. And his mom wasn't there because his mom had passed away from cancer. So it was literally just him and his dad was just going to let him do whatever he wanted to do, because I guess he didn't want to push Jintan away, because Jintan had shut himself off when his mom died. So Jintan was pretty much shut in. None of his friends knew where he was. After the thing with Minma happened, well, after Minma passed away, all of them pretty much went their separate ways, because Minma was, I guess she was kind of like the tie between all of them, because all of them had a connection with her. And after she died, that was pretty much the end of that connection. And they all went their separate ways. Anaru still has feelings for Jintan, but she was being kind of an asshole to him, I guess, because she knew that he still wasn't technically over Minma. And of all of them, the only ones that actually continued to be friends were Yukiatsu and Tsuruko. And the only reason why they stayed friends was because they went to the same elite high school and they were both fucking smart. So they continued to talk to each other. And the reason why, well, I think the main reason why is because Tsuruko still has feelings for Yukiatsu, but of course Yukiatsu is still hung up on Minma. And the fact that Tsuruko was able to still have such strong feelings for Yukiatsu, even though she knew that Yukiatsu was cross-dressing behind closed doors, and she knew that him, like, whenever he would ask her to go with him to, like, buy stuff for this supposed girlfriend that she knew was non-existent, but he thought that he was hiding pretty well, she knew that he was, like, getting all this stuff to pretty much cross-dress. So at this point, all of them just so happened to meet up again, and Jintan was walking down the street with Minma, and of course nobody else can see her, but he's pretty much talking to her. Well, it looks like he's talking to himself. He's walking down the street with Minma, and Minma is talking to him, and then Yukiatsu and Tsuruko literally come up out of nowhere, and they start pretty much, well, Yukiatsu has so much animosity towards Jintan, it's not even funny. So Yukiatsu decides that he just wants to harp on Jintan, and Jintan literally, like, just runs away. And Minma is trying to, like, she was pretty much trying to get Yukiatsu and Tsuruko's attention, because she's like, oh my gosh, they're here, blah, 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 because all she wanted was to be able to see all of them again and be able to talk to all of them again, but she can only really talk to Jintan. So she was trying to get their attention, and she saw that Yukiatsu was just being a butthole to Jintan, and then Jintan, like, runs away, and Tsuruko is asking him, like, why is he doing all this shit, because Jintan was probably going through the most pain out of all of them when Minma died because of the way things turned out. So they went about their business, blah, 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 and it turns out that Jintan tries to go to the old shack that they all used to hang out at, and he finds out that Popo is actually living there. So he meets up with Popo again, and Popo he's gotten big. Like, he is a pretty healthy looking dude. So he sees Popo again, and they catch up or whatever, and he tells Popo that Minma has pretty much come back, but when she came back their age. Like, she came back looking their age. She didn't come back looking like she did when she was a little kid, which I still don't necessarily understand. I don't understand how that works out for her to be able to reincarnate herself as she would be at that age. I didn't understand that, but that's neither here nor there. So Popo is, like, gung-ho, all to go with Minma being there, and he completely believes Jintan, because he doesn't have he said he doesn't have a reason not to. So he is completely okay with trying to figure out what Minma's wish is. And in that, Popo tells Anaru and Yukiatsu and Tsuruko about Minma actually being there, and of course Yukiatsu was being an asshole, and Tsuruko had her doubts, and of course Anohana had her doubts. But Popo was literally the only person who actually believed him when he said that Minma was there. So they have this whole elaborate like schemes together. Like they all hang out together, and Yukiatsu, being the asshole that he is, he decides to tell them that Minma said that she doesn't want them all harping on her, blah blah blah. That, well, he pretty much says that Minma came and talked to him, and Minma was like, I never went to talk to him. I can't talk to him. Jintan is literally the only person that she can talk to. So we find out that Yukiatsu is just full of shit, and he was trying to make Jintan look stupid, which didn't work out too well for him, because Minma eventually is able to make contact with all of them, and the only way she can do so is writing in her journal, but that comes later. So Minma is like talking to all of them, and well, she's not talking to all of them, she's talking to Jintan and trying to get her to give them messages, and none of them are listening to him. So they go like walking through the woods looking for her, and then later on in another situation Popo was like literally outside peeing, and he said that he saw Minma running through the woods. So of course Popo calls Jintan, because Jintan had said something to Minma to make her leave, because he said that he didn't want her there or whatever. So she left, and Jintan thought that Minma was actually the one running through the woods, but he found her. And they all, Jintan, Popo, and Minma, and Tsuruko and Anohana all went running through the woods looking for this supposed Minma. And it comes to find out that Yukiatsu was the one cross-dressing. And he has gone fucking crazy. Oh my god, it's ridiculous how crazy this motherfucker is. But he decides to bring it upon himself to run around in a dress that looks similar to Minma's, and wears a long like gray or blonde wig. And they show him later, after he has his whole episode of cross-dressing, they show him sniffing the wig, which I personally think is really creepy, but that's neither here nor there. That's on him. What he does behind closed doors is what he does behind closed doors. So after all of that, of course Yukiatsu is a little uneasy with showing his face in front of everybody, but of course Tsuruko is still his friend or whatever. So they're still hanging out, and Tsuruko, of course, is holding it over his head, saying that she was going to tell people that he was a cross-dresser, because everybody always questions them because they are so close. They question that they are lovers, and even a storekeeper asked them if they were together. So it would come to reason that they would appear to be together. But she pretty much threatens to tell that he's a cross-dresser, and he's like, he really doesn't even care. He has come to grips with the fact that he's crazy, and Tsuruko is really the only person that keeps him from going absolutely insane, because she, like I said, she's the peacekeeper of the group. So in that, we see Minma is still like, Jintan is the only person that she can still talk to. But at that point, they all decided to go see Minma's mom. So they went to her old house, and come to find out, Minma's mom is fucking crazy. Like, it is ridiculous how crazy this woman is. Like, but that comes later. So Minma's mom invites them to come in the house, and she shows them their, like, her memorial with her picture and everything. And they show, like, Minma's mom, she still gives Minma's picture her favorite food, and Minma's brother, in turn, is pretty much completely forgotten about after Minma died, and Minma's mom doesn't even know like how tall her brother is, because he was pretty much just put aside after Minma died that day. And it sucks, because he is still her child, but she doesn't even think about him anymore. And he says this to her, and it really hurts her, but she really needed to hear it, because Minma's mom is fucking crazy. That's, like I said, that's neither here nor there. So during this time, like after they left the house, they all went their separate ways, and Jintan was going back home, But Minma wasn't aware because he had told Minma that he was going to start going to school, and he tried to go to school the first day and it didn't even work out for him. Like, he got there and before he could even actually get to school, he left and he just went and hung out with Popo. So Minma is still thinking, like, at the time that he is still like going to school or whatever, and all the while there he's like hanging out with Popo and figuring out ways to grant Minma's wish, even though they have no clue what the wish is. So once they were all able to get back together without Minma being there, they were reading the diary and they figured out that, well, pretty much everything in the diary just said, this is what we did and we had fun. And that was it. Literally, like, almost every entry. And then they showed, they were talking, well, she was talking about in her diary about building that huge firecracker that they wanted to build one summer. And little kids are really scary considering that they think of all this destructive shit, and they could have killed themselves trying to make the stuff that they were making. Well, trying to make the stuff that they wanted to make. So it became their main objective to make Minma's wish come true, which they thought the wish was making the huge firecracker to send Minma off. So that was pretty much their main objective, was to make that huge firecracker. Well, they had to get the money together to make the huge firecracker. They found somebody who could make the firecracker for them, but it was going to be a lot of money. So Jintan started working like 2 jobs. First, he was working a job with Anaru in the video store that she works at, and also doing like construction work with Popo. So Jintan was doing all this work, and Minma was like kind of like his guardian angel. She was watching him, and like she realized what he was doing and why he was doing it, which made her happy because she still doesn't know what her wish was. So in all of that, Jintan also, he gets mad at Minma because she pretty much makes him cry every time he thinks about the fact of her leaving, because he doesn't want her to leave, because he always still had feelings after all this time. He realizes that he still has feelings for Minma, and he always wanted to be with her, even when he was little, even though he said those really mean things to her when they were little. So he's doing all this work trying to get things together so that way he can make this huge firecracker to send Minma off into heaven. And of course things go from bad to worse, and of course Yukiatsu, being the asshole that he still is, he sets up this whole thing with like Popo and Tsuruko and Anaru to pretty much make Jintan relive the day that caused Minma to die. Because they show when all of them were little, Anaru, because she's so in love with Jintan and she wanted to be with him, and she was so jealous at the fact that he liked Minma, she pretty much made all of them gang up on Jintan, and Jintan called Minma ugly, and Minma didn't cry, because normally Minma was like the big crybaby of the group and she was always crying or whatever. And because of this, Jintan went running off and Minma followed him, and that was in turn the way she fell off the cliff and died that day. So Jintan was forever feeling like it was his fault that she died, and then we later learned that the reason why all of them were only helping Jintan try to figure out what Minma's wish was, because they had their own selfish reasons as for why they wanted to send Minma off. So after they found out that they couldn't even make the firecracker for Minma, they all came out with their dirty little secrets. Jintan, of course, he was always in love with Minma. Yukiatsu, the reason why he had so much animosity towards Jintan was because he was so in love with Minma, but Minma didn't want him, she wanted Jintan. The reason why Tsuruko wanted to send Minma off was because she was in love with Yukiatsu, and Yukiatsu didn't have feelings for her. She knew that regardless of how much she loved him, Yukiatsu was always going to have feelings for Minma. And then Anaru had a reason for sending Minma off, because she was the reason, well, she has such strong feelings for Jintan that she knew that he was never going to get over Minma as well. And she always just wanted to be with Jintan. And she wanted to be more like Minma, and she knew that if Minma was out of the way, then maybe she would be able to get close enough to Jintan to actually be with him. And then Popo, he was just mad. Well, he was just happy to be there, but he was part of the reason why all of them ganged up on Jintan. He didn't stop it, so he felt like he was part of the reason why Minma died as well. So he just wanted Minma to forgive him. All of them just wanted Minma to forgive them, because all of them had their own fucking selfish reasons as to why they wanted to send Minma off. And then after all of this, they were finally able to make the firecracker. But the second time that they went to Minma's house, Minma's mom went fucking crazy. Like, she tried to hurt them. Like, she tried to hurt Tsuruko. And that was when all of that came out. So, and Minma was so upset because she didn't want to see her mother cry. So, all of this happened, and they were finally able to make the firecracker. And Jintan, while he was at work one day with Anaru, Minma's brother came into the store, and they began to talk or whatever, and Jintan was learning that Minma's brother like had his own feelings, and he was pretty much upset because his mom pretty much had no idea of anything about him, because she was so still stuck on Minma, and Minma had been passed away for years at that point. So Jintan invited Minma's brother to come to the firecracker shooting off. And all of them, like, they all got together or whatever, and they were about to shoot off the firecracker, and Jintan was having complete second thoughts about sending Minma off. Because at this point, Jintan had admitted to Minma that he wanted to marry her. He didn't want her to leave. But Minma was like, well, I have to leave or whatever. And she was like, I love all of you guys, blah, blah, blah. So Jintan was feeling some type of way, and he didn't want Minma to leave. So at the very end, Jintan was about to like stop the firecracker, but the firecracker went off. So he like busted it, and all of them were crying, and Minma's mom actually came, and the brother came, and they were all crying, and then Jintan realizes that Minma is still there. So literally after all that hard work and all the effort that he put in to do all of that to send Minma off, and she still wasn't gone, made them realize that that wasn't really her wish. So all of them were pretty much just trying to figure out a way to send Minma off. So Jintan is pretty much just at a loss for words at this point. But they finally find out a way for Minma to be able to talk to all of them, and the only way that she can talk to all of them is through her diary. So she's able to write in her diary and say things to them. So she uses her diary to talk to all of them, and at this point, like, they reenact what happened the day that Minma died. And instead of Jintan saying that he didn't like her and called her ugly, he said that he liked her, and he ran off. So after all this, we finally see, like, after everything happened, Minma starts getting sick, like she can't hardly move or anything, and we finally find out what Minma's wish really was. And Minma finally remembers what her wish really was. And it was before she died, before Jintan's mom even died, she went to go see her. And Jintan's mom was so upset because Jintan didn't want to come see her anymore. And she said that he's just so bottled up inside that he really just needs to, she understands that he's trying to be strong, but he really just needs to embrace the fact that she is not going to be with him very long, and she just wants to be able to be with her son, but he doesn't want to see her in that state. And Minma's promise to Jintan's mom was to make him cry. And because she had already made him cry several times, she was starting to fade away. And eventually at this point, like, it gets so bad to the point that Jintan can't even see Minma anymore. So Minma is like, she is so worried, and they all go like looking for her, and they're running through the woods. Jintan doesn't even have shoes on, and he's fucking up his feet running through the woods looking for Minma, and they're all calling out to her, and they can't hear her, or she can't communicate with them. So at that point, this is like close to the end. Minma, she writes a note to all 5 of them in her diary, and like pulls out the pages and leaves them on the ground. And Minma is like sitting in front of a tree, literally fading away. And all of them get her letter. They read it out loud, and like Yukiatsu, she tells Yukiatsu that she likes his, I think, his loyalty. She likes like Popo's happiness. I'm totally flubbing these. She likes Anaru's, well, I think she said she likes Anaru's loyalty, and she likes Tsuruko's like togetherness, and then she tells, I'm probably completely wrong with those 4, but I remember that she tells Jintan that she loves him, and it's the kind of love that makes her want to be his wife. And I cried on the last episode. I'm not even gonna lie, this anime was fucking heart-wrenching watching. So at the end, they all finally get to see Minma, and they're all playing. They all said, "Are you ready?" Whatever, blah blah blah. And then Minma is finally able to be freed, and she pretty much just goes into heaven, and all of them are like crying and boo-hooing, and it was just, oh my god, this anime was so fucking sad. It's making me tear up again already. So if you have not watched this anime, please go watch it now, because it's so fucking awesome. And it's so heart-wrenching. So be prepared to have some tissues, and just be ready to have a good cry. Because if you don't even tear up a little bit, you have no soul. So I know this first impressions was very long, but I just had to talk about this one because this show was just amazing. Oh my goodness. But I would love to hear, if any of you have watched it, I would love to hear what you guys thought. Like, what were your thoughts about this anime? And of course, as always, please remember to comment, thumbs up, and subscribe. And this is TsubakiSwagg saying adios.